We begin this hour with tension building in northern Syria. Today, Syrian government forces entered the northern city of Manbij at the request of civilians and Kurdish fighters in the area. This move comes as the Kurds try to strengthen the city's defense and after Turkey sent its troops along their southern border with Syria. In a written statement published in a Syrian news agency, Damascus responded by saying, quote, considering the Arab army's duty and in response to a call by the people of Manbij, the Syrian General Staff announces that the army has entered Manbij and raised the flag of the Syrian Arab Republic there. Turkey made its move after the U.S. announced it will be pulling its troops out of Kurd-controlled areas in Syria. Ankara sees all Kurdish fighters as terrorists, an extension of its domestic Kurdish insurgency in both Syria and Iraq. Joining me in studio to discuss this fluid situation in northern Syria, it's former U.S. Diplomat Jim Jatras. Now, Jim, the Kurds, they asked the Syrian government to take over Manbij to protect it from Turkish attack. Do you think that this threat is still relevant?
Yes, it is relevant. There's some question whether President Trump will be able to follow through withdrawal of American forces from eastern Syria, but the locals certainly think it's going forward, and they're scrambling around to take control of that territory. And as we saw a few months ago in another area further west called Afrin, where the Kurds were confronted with a threatened Turkish incursion, the Syrian government offered to help come protect them, and the Kurds turned them down, and that was a bad move on their part. I don't think they're going to repeat that mistake now, that faced with a possible Turkish attack, they want the Syrian government to come in and reclaim control of those territories.
Jim, would you say that this request for a takeover was as a result of President Trump announcing to withdraw troops from Syria?
Absolutely right. The Kurds, I think, had placed too much confidence in the American presence there. We can go into the details of that, but nobody should have imagined we were going to stay there forever. And evidently the Kurds overplayed their hand. So it seemed to me at this point, given a choice between Erdogan and Assad, there's really only one choice, which is to make some kind of a deal with the Syrian government, reestablish government control of those areas. Maybe there will be some kind of Turkish presence right along the border, but I don't think the Turks, if they're smart, want to dig too far into that area. And in fact, the Russians have warned them to back off from Manbij.
On this latest move, it's left Turkey stunned. What do you think this is going to do to U.S. Turkey relations?
Actually, I think it's going to improve them, because we were in a very awkward situation where our de facto Kurdish allies and our treaty allies in NATO, the Turks, were facing off against each other, and it looked like the Americans were siding with our de facto Kurdish allies against our treaty allies. That's not a good situation for the Americans to be in. I think that conversation between President Trump and President Erdogan is what really turned the corner on this, although I think this is what Trump really has wanted to do all along.
So there are reports that locals and Manbij, they say that they feel abandoned and betrayed by America. They were saying when America was there and there was a presence in that town that they felt safe. So do you think that this was a good move for Trump to remove troops from Syria?
It's a good move for the United States to get us out of wars where we don't belong or we don't have any interest. It's a good move for Syria, and that means all Syrians, including Kurds, to bring this war to an end. And it's the interference from outside powers, not only the United States, but our friends in the region, the Israelis, the Saudis, the Qataris, the Turks, the Emiratis, that have kept this pot boiling and people dying for almost 8 years, and it's got to come to an end.
But Jim, some locals, they're saying that they believe it will make matters on the ground even worse now that U.S. troops are gone.
Never underestimate the human potentiality to mess up things and cause a destructive suffering where it doesn't need to happen. But it doesn't need to happen now. If the Turks come to an agreement with the Russians and the Syrians, they can work this out. The Kurds will take their best option with the Syrian government. This could be a milestone for ending this war. And then the only real question is what happens to all the al-Qaeda assets in Idlib.
A Turkish official said that during a phone call with Trump, that Trump asked if we withdraw our soldiers, can you clean up ISIS? Turkey responded saying that it could, and then that's when Trump announced the withdrawal of troops from Syria. But it shocked Turkish officials who said the decision was certainly unexpected, and not only with Turkey, but here in the U.S. Many people were shocked. What do you say to that?
Well, I think the Turks were taken somewhat off guard because, let's remember, President Trump had a bunch of talking points about all the reasons why we were going to stay stay there, and he ignored them and used the conversation with Erdogan as, I think, an excuse to do what he really wanted to do. We don't need the Turks to take care of ISIS. The fact is that we're the ones who have been playing dog in the manger there that allow ISIS to retain its presence in eastern Syria. With us out of the way, the Syrians, the Russians, the Iraqis, and the Iranians will annihilate what's left of ISIS. We don't need the Turks to do that.
We have about 40 seconds left. Now, Turkey's future plans for Syria are more or less clear. They will continue to try to disarm Kurdish militant groups. But what about Russia and Iran? What goal do you think they will have pursuing in Syria and once the U.S. has withdrawn its troops?
Well, let's start with the first thing, is that for almost 8 years, the game plan has been regime change in Damascus. And it's finally getting through people's thick skulls that isn't going to happen. As we talked about yesterday with the UAE reopening its embassy in Damascus, Syria about to be readmitted to the Arab League. What we need to find is some kind of a stable modus vivendi and some balance among the powers of the region. That's not going to be easy to do, but starting with peace in Syria and hands off of Syria.
We're going to have to leave it right there, Jim. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.